Howdy there, folks. It's Glenn with the almost world famous Cactus Atlas right outside of Gila Bend, Arizona, about to start one of our daily vlogs. I decided to start our vlog today off the very noisy Highway 85 right at the outskirts of Gila Bend at the municipal airport that I've driven by so many times I can't count, and always passed these jets and always wondered about them, and decided for the first time to actually just stop and admire them. You'll have to excuse the loud noise. It's a very busy highway out there, 85, a lot of semi trucks going to and fro. This is a very popular route between Phoenix, Arizona and San Diego, for example, to get to Interstate 8, to go to Mexico, Oregon Pipe. A lot of people might be going to like Rocky Point or Puerto Penasco, Mexico. So it's just a very popular route for tourists and commercial activity, you name it. So, and always wanted to know about these things. And there's the sign for State Route 85. And let's talk a little bit about these aircraft. We're not gonna linger here too long today, but I did do some very quick internet research, and I can now report to you what these actually are. So what I read on the internet is that these are the RF-101, I believe, Voodoo jet aircraft that served in the Vietnam War era as reconnaissance aircraft. And they were brought out here to the nice dry climate where they've remained remarkably well preserved over the years. And I don't really know the backstory of why they put them here. I mean, it's an airport, so that kind of makes sense. But when you actually get up close and personal and look at them, it's a rather sizable jet aircraft, actually. A lot bigger right up front when you're standing right next to one of these things. So once again, I believe it's the RF-101 Voodoo is the name of this particular aircraft, and there's a pair of them. This one here, I assume it's an Air Force aircraft, and its counterpart over here. Beautiful aircraft. I love this sort of stuff. Not an expert by any means, so if I misspoke or anybody knows better than me, please feel free to comment, and if you're correct and correct me, I'll always pin comments. But this is just based off of very quick internet research, the RF-101 Voodoo. Very impressive though. And like I said, all I read is that these are reconnaissance aircraft. I'm assuming as the public, there's plenty of places to park out here. There's no signs saying to not go here. There's actually an open gate. I don't want to cause problems and didn't really research too much, so I'm going to stay outside the gate. There are signs indicating don't climb on them, but that's about it. But we're like right up on it anyway, so I mean, I don't know what more I'll get by going inside the gate anyway. We'll walk to the back of it here and take a quick look. And this is seeing one from behind. It looks like I don't know the terminology for that, but the cockpits in the back here have some kind of black material sealing them off, probably to keep the elements out. But really cool, very neat aircraft. Today's episode is not about aircraft necessarily. I thought this would be an appropriate starting point for some adventuring around the Gila Bend area that we're going to be doing. And I'm going to get back into my truck slim here in a minute, and I'll explain a little bit more about what we're up to today. I'm glad I stopped there to check these out finally. It's been a year after year I've driven by these things and never really took the time, it's kind of just in a inconvenient spot when you're kind of going to and fro. But in case you were ever wondering about these, that's what I believe these to be. Let's take one more look at these, and then we'll hit the road, and we got lots to do today. I've got lots to do today, I should say. Not just Cactus Atlas business, as I will explain. And there's another stop inside of Gila Bend right down the road that I want to make to look at something historic before we head out into the desert in the nearby region. let's take in one, I keep saying one last look and then I keep filming more. I like these shots, they're like that, where you can get them both in there. It's kind of cool. Just wish the fence wasn't there, but understandable why it is. In case you're new here, this is my truck Slim. Haven't really talked about Slim in a long time, as we haven't really been filming too much on the Cactus Atlas until as of late. And that's the truck Slim. He's my workhorse for the Cactus Atlas, and today not really doing any major off-roading or anything like that we usually would use Slim for, but I am going to put him to work a little bit as we head on out into the desert. So let's get on in and get some cameras set up on him, and I'll talk to you from the truck. I think we're all set up. It's been a long time since I've used this setup in the truck. So, but it went really fast setting it up and testing it. So everything is still operational. And now we're gonna try to make a left turn onto this extremely busy State Highway 85. And then we're gonna drive into Gila Bend and through it. Not our final destination, Gila Bend, but there's one building there that I like, similar to these aircraft, that I always wanna check out. So that's what we're going to do now. Actually, I've got a break in all the semi trucks, so we're going to take advantage of that and head on into town. We'll admire some of the sights here in the Gila Bend area. In case you missed the last couple of videos I recorded earlier this week, this is a continuation of doing an experiment of daily vlogs, trying to record not record every day, but release a video every day, which does require filming many days of the week. And I wanted to just fit, I had to be down in this area today. We're going to be heading to our next location, Painted Rock Petroglyph site, which some of you might remember from an old video, to do some camp view business. Going to do a drive through there, and figured let's just tie in some Cactus Atlas business into that and kill two birds with one stone, as they say. And now we're entering here, I think, Gila Bend proper. And then very soon up the road, our first or our second stop on our journey should be. But really loose agenda today. Not the most well-researched thing. Not really going to say too much about our stops. And just going to keep it very casual. And I thought it would be kind of fun to just tie this into my other work and just take you along basically on the job with me today in a way. But pinned a lot of really cool locations along the way, like those jet aircraft that we always wanted to stop. So just marking things off the list, basically. Things that I've wanted to stop and film for years and just never really fit in. Today's the day to do a couple things in this area. I always liked Gila Bend and driving through here, on the way to San Diego in the past when I've spent a lot of time there, or even like Oregon Pipe. I went camping there, filmed a video there from a couple days ago. So I've driven this very route just even a few days ago, basically, but we didn't actually film the journey down there. And of course, not gonna talk about my recovery from cancer treatment like I've been tying into a lot of episodes. Today is going to be more of a traditional exploration, basically, like we would do in the Cactus Atlas. Maybe not with the pretty music all the time and all the stuff, the post-production, but a more casual vlogging adventure. But my mouth is very dry at the moment. The second I start talking and get out into this desert air, the moisture gets sucked out of my mouth, and I've talked about in previous videos why that is. And I see our location right up ahead here. There's that weird space age lodge hotel that you might recognize, and that's not my stop today, but this old historic hotel is the Stouts Hotel, part of, I think, the 9/11 Memorial Park, it looks like, or right across from the 9/11 Memorial Park. But I wanted to check out this building here. This historic building is really what I've come here for. Another thing I drive by a million times and always wondered about it. Never really even researched it until this morning. Oh, and I see some adobe. neato. So adobe brick crumbling right here in Gila Bend. So let me turn this off, we'll get out on foot. And you'll have to excuse, we got more noise. We got trucks on one side and trains on the other. And that train's been, I got gas many minutes ago and came back up the road, and I think this train was, same train I think has been passing by. Some of these things I think are like a mile long, maybe more. But anyway, if you hear that din in the background, it's the train. And then there's gonna be trucks here on the main road, but we're in the back of this historic Stouts hotel. Did some very brief reading on the internet about it. So once again, not the most educated, but it's a starting point. And there's that adobe brick that I mentioned. I don't think this thing's in operation anymore. We'll see if we can peek in the windows maybe, but the front of the building is what I usually notice. So let's go take a look at that. We'll walk along the side of this historic hotel. And I know it still has a sign on the front that says Stouts Motel or Hotel. And I believe it served multiple functions, or it housed multiple businesses. I think a cafe, barber shop, hotel. And it looks like there might be some stuff in the window here. And there's the sign I always drive by, the Stouts Hotel. It says there's vacancy, but I'm pretty sure it's not operational. Maybe I'm wrong, but... So basically my understanding of this hotel, it looks like there's historic items actually here, and maybe even some kind of a museum. Kind of sparse in there, hard to see, I know. Basically, let me tell you what I think I know about this building. One of the weird things about this is I was just getting dates on it, and this is from the 1920s, that decade. But the weird thing reading on the internet is according to the site or two that I read about, nobody really is certain of the actual opening date or construction date for some reason. I've read some people think it's 1923. And then others say 1928. I've read somewhere in that range. Why something in a somewhat modern time doesn't have a more precise date is kind of curious to me. But once again, didn't really research it that carefully, so I probably could have dug something up. But my best guess, something between 1923 and 1928. And it looks to be in some disrepair. There's broken glass up there. That window's wide open. A lot of boarded up windows, so that's why I don't think this thing actually is operating, but the old signs seem to still be there. Would have had neon signs, including air conditioning, steam heat. It's a beautiful old sign though. Ooh, and this is neat too. And there's a date. Since 1929. So now I've seen 3 different dates. I've seen 1923, 1928, and now 1929. I'm gonna go with 1929. Because that's the best evidence I've seen, basically. So, very cool, very neat colored glass there. And a very dusty, dirty window, and trying to dip my camera up here to take a peek inside there for you. Looks like an old bar. The floor looks beautiful, that tile. I love old buildings like this. It'd be really cool if somebody could fix this up and reopen it. Although I don't know how much business it would actually get in modern times. One of the things that, if everything goes according to plan that we're gonna do, is there's a historic highway, Highway 80, which is, I think, from this time frame in the 1920s when the age of the automobile and the vacationers and travel was really starting to pick up. Probably a contemporary, I would assume, of Route 66, and oftentimes thought of in that way. That travel, my understanding, is a 500-mile route from California to New Mexico and passed through Gila Bend here. There's a historic bridge and dam that we're gonna go see off this a ways, kind of off in the desert, that we're gonna try to hit on the way back. I imagine this is of that era. when there would have been a lot more tourism. And you know, in modern times, Phoenix is only, I mean, if you want to go downtown Phoenix, maybe like an hour, hour and a half by modern vehicle. But like some of the suburbs, like Buckeye and places like that, are not far at all. So there probably would not be much reason for modern travelers to kind of stop here. Like you most likely, just if you're traveling between San Diego or something and Phoenix, you'd probably just push on to Phoenix in this day and age and have very little reason to stop here. Hence why it's probably abandoned, probably won't be opened ever again, and probably very little reason economically to consider it, I'm guessing. But I also noticed something cool over here. I've seen memorial parks like this before, tributes to 9/11, and I think I see some metal, presumably from the Twin Towers, on display over here that we'll take a quick look at. As an added bonus that I wasn't planning on. I didn't realize this was right over here. I've seen similar things. I want to say in Winslow, Arizona, they have something very similar to this, where they have pieces of what I presume is the World Trade Center. There's a sign here that will clarify that, right next to the Stouts Hotel. Let's see. Yep, so this is a piece of the Twin Towers. Like I said, I'm sure there's lots of these around the country, I imagine, but I forget what video I think I filmed or spent some time maybe in Winslow, if I remember seeing something very similar, like a girder or something of this nature, but a piece of the Twin Towers from that horrific day in history that I remember very well that day, as do probably most of us. Pretty eerie when you think the entire journey of this piece of metal and concrete, from when it was erected to when the towers fell to being shipped out here to serve as a memorial to remember that. And most people drive on by and probably don't even see this. I've not noticed it, to be honest. As embarrassing as it might be to say. So we'll pay our respects here, and then we're gonna have to hit the road and continue. If you're driving by Gila Bend and you wanna stop and see this, I mean, it's right off of 85. You can't really miss the Stouts Hotel. It always catches my eye because it shows its age better than a lot of the modern buildings, but then you have the 9/11 Memorial Park, town of Gila Bend, Arizona, right next to it. And then we'll get one last look here at the historic Stouts Hotel before we go. Alrighty, there we have it. Stouts Hotel and the 9/11 Memorial here in Gila Bend. And I plotted a route now.
Turn right onto East Murphy Street.
I got
then turn right
sorry
onto
about
South
that.
Martin Avenue.
Got my
turn right onto South
directions
Martin
on,
Avenue.
and now
Then
she's
turn
gonna
left onto
talk.
West Street.
So I apologize, but let's hit the road and head on out of town.
Head north on South Capitol Avenue toward East Pima Street.
I
then
will.
turn left onto East Pima Street.
So I don't know. I'll continue rolling film here as we head on down. We're actually going out to Interstate 8. As if we were going to San Diego, California from Phoenix. That's the route you would take. But we're not going that far, not even close. Only about 25 minutes away, it looks like, that we're heading today out to a site that we've been to before on the channel. And primarily going to film the campground there, do a drive-through for my other channel, Camp View, gathering content for the application that I've been developing, as well as the YouTube channel Camp View. And we'll explain a little bit more, because chances are if you're newer here or joined up with the Cactus Atlas even in the last year or so, you may have missed that one. I don't even remember what episode it was part of anymore. I know I camped there, and it may have been part of that episode, but we're gonna just do a quick fresh update, and it's really neat. If you're not familiar with what it is, it's one of the neater historical sites here in Arizona. in this region, I would say, of which there's a lot of history around here, going back to the 1800s, the indigenous people that, like the Hohokam, that inhabited this area before settlers came out from the east. Tons and tons of stuff, lots of stuff we haven't even done.
Diego.
Okay, so this should be Interstate 8 right here. Kind of happy to get away from all this congestion here. Just such a
Take
busy
the I-8 West ramp.
stretch of road, really. Especially for semi-trucks. Like this road probably sees more semi-trucks
Continue
than
on I-8
passenger
West for
cars.
13 miles.
So just a reminder, because I think this video should be coming out tomorrow, actually on Thursday. I believe it's May the 1st tomorrow. I think today's April the 30th. So I'm actually filming it the day before it releases, so you know it's fresh and hot. But because some of you may have missed the earlier episodes this week, if you did, I'd recommend going back and watching them if you're curious what I'm up to and why I'm filming again. It's part of a plan, a test. And a test that might only run for a couple weeks minimum is my goal, but might extend it a little bit further if things are going well. But essentially trying to do daily videos or vlogs, a little bit more casual maybe than your typical Cactus Atlas of the past. But a video like today may feel more like the videos of the past, so I do want to mix in some adventure-y kind of exploration stuff like this, so it's not all like updates about my health or what I'm up to. So hopefully those of you that like our traditional content will dig this sort of thing that I'm doing today, which I'm going to be filming more like this probably than updates, I would say. But enough said, that's all I'm going to say about that. Not really thinking this is going to be terribly interesting to film the interstate the whole time, so I'm going to shut down the cameras for a bit, and then we'll pick up once we get off the highway here in about 11 miles. Outside of Gila Bend is our exit 102. There's our sign for exit 102, the Painted Rock Petroglyph site. Painted Rock Road is what you're looking for. Exit 102 off of Interstate 8.
Mile. Take exit 102 for Painted Rock Road.
I don't remember how to get there by memory, so I need to rely on the Google Map directions. So my apologies for the frequent interruptions, but they're needed and appreciated. Lots of farmland out here, though. It's a very interesting area.
Exit 102, then turn right onto Citrus Valley Road.
And really, this is such an interesting area. Like, if you've ever driven between Phoenix and San Diego, especially like when I first moved here, I would go out there a lot, like 20 years ago now. And you drive through this stretch of 8, and it's just flat usually, mountains in the background, but just so barren looking that, you know, I always wondered, like, there's nothing out here. And then as I started doing the Cactus Atlas and researching history, the history of the indigenous people of this area, the history of settlers, you know, stagecoach routes, you name it. There is a lot of stories to tell out here. And even today, when you start exploring back here, you'd be surprised at how green it is with just farmland. When you really start to travel some of these dirt roads back here, you just wouldn't really know that unless you get off the beaten path. And the giant solar generating facility right off to my left here. Now, one of the reasons for all of this farmland is, you know, we're near the Gila River, which is big part of the history here. It was a really popular travel route, even going back before settlers came from the east. And that's really one of the things we're going to be seeing here at Painted Rock Petroglyph is kind of a very important waypoint, it would seem, where the indigenous people from cultures that are no longer, the DNA has been passed down through the generations, but really what the meanings are and what they were doing out here, we'll really never know for sure. But Just fascinating, because this was a very important travel route throughout history, mainly following the Gila River, which today is just a dried up, usually just dried up, nothing there, because all of these farmlands suck it dry, especially once you get out to this section. So it's rare that I ever see water flowing out here, but clearly with all the farmland, there's some water being used out here, so. There's nobody out here, so I'm kind of stopped on this road here. Keep encountering like areas of flowing water here. I'm gonna go to the left, or maybe I'll stay right in the middle because I could see the dotted yellow line here, but like lots of areas of water running over the road, and we haven't had any rain that I know of like in this area, so I presume it's just something having to do with the farmland out here. That's a second giant puddle like that I've encountered on this road already, and we're kind of getting further off the highway and getting closer to these beautiful mountains out here, so I figured we'd roll a little bit, talk about it. But I don't know, why is that water? Does anybody know? Is it some kind of runoff from farmland? Or with water being such a scarcity out here, you'd think someone would be a little bit more would want to conserve that a little bit more, but I don't know. It's like, where the heck is it coming from? It's dry as a bone otherwise, and that wasn't the Gila River as far as I know. The Gila River is out this ways, I believe. Gila River we actually will, I believe, one of the last stops I want to make on this journey when we head back, towards home, should be at the Gila River, actually, right at the bend in the Gila River where Gila Bend got its name, in fact. But I always love the hills and mountains out this way. There's lots of, you'll see lots of craggly, pointy, interesting formations, kind of like these two up straight ahead, which probably look tiny on the camera above the truck because it's a GoPro wide angle view, but we're only about 5 miles now though from our destination, so making excellent time today. Should have this whole Painted Rock Petroglyph site and campground drive-through done by noontime. Alright, we're only a couple miles away from our destination, and just was driving and enjoying the views out here, the desert, and just kind of remarking to myself how much I miss this aspect of what I do, just being out on the open road. Like I said, I don't know if the other part of the route's going to hit any dirt or off pavement today. Doesn't matter though, paved or not, just being out away from the city, back out in my element, it feels really good. It's just part of my journey, I think, with all this stuff. This is the real medicine I think I need at this point to heal. It's starting to look kind of familiar, but you can see all that greenery out there straight ahead, all the farmland that they have out here near the Gila River. And one of the areas that I really like to travel, that I might be making a video about,
road for 3/4 of a mile.
Let her finish there, has even more farmland. I'm thinking about making a video here soon in another area out in this region. I've got like a long list of videos I want to make.
In half a mile,
I'm out
keep
here.
left to continue on Rocky Point Road.
Will do. We're essentially there. I think I actually even saw the volcanic rocks. You can't really probably make them out, but I think the rocks that the petroglyphs are etched on by the hands of indigenous people, probably like close to 1,000 years ago, if I remember my dates correctly. And this is
left to continue on Rocky Point Road.
This is by the way, a property of the BLM. So public land out here, no charge to come visit it. I highly recommend, to anybody that likes
half a mile, turn left.
Petroglyphs. There is the sign right there for Painted Rock Petroglyphs, but we're not going to spend a terrible amount of time out here. So if you've already seen this, don't worry, I'm not going to dwell too much. I'm really here for the camp view drive-through. But we're gonna certainly walk around where the petroglyphs are, because it's just, I always marvel at them and like to wonder what those folks were thinking, you know, what their lives were like back then. I would say my favorite of all of the pre-Columbian
Turn
cultures,
left, then turn right.
the Hohokam, as archaeology calls them, or the ancestral Sonoran desert people, I think is the more PC term if we're kind of speaking outside of the context of archaeology.
Turn right, then you will arrive at your destination.
And I don't see any cars out here, not surprised. This is a very, probably seldom traveled area, but we'll kind of, I'm not camping here, the campground's straight ahead, but we'll probably start a drive-through over here. But that pile of rocks right there is really what we're here to see. That's straight ahead here.
You have arrived.
Yes, we have. I actually have a cell phone signal out here. Half of us a signal, I should say. But we got our choice of parking, it looks like. Man, it feels good to be back out at this. All right, let's get out on foot, and then I'll explain what this is, and then when we're done doing that, I'm gonna do my drive-through, and then we'll connect back up. Well, we'll connect back out on foot, but after that, we'll be back out on the road. All right, we will leave Slim here to soak up some rays as we explore this petroglyph site. In case you're new, I'll explain what petroglyphs are and give you like the basics. I'm not here for a complete history lesson. And even my knowledge ebbs and wanes just because, like, you know, I'll do research and then I might not be back out for a couple of years, and it's been a long time, but I do see a sign warning of rattlesnakes. Probably unlikely we'll come across that during the day out here, and if we did, I bet you it would be in a shady area in there. But we're not here to hunt rattlesnakes. Here to hunt the markings of a culture that has really been erased from time, other than the markings they left. And I do like to point this out, because once in a while you get someone in the comments that wants to try to school me, you know, on this. But what this is really saying is nobody really knows the true meaning of what these things are. Clearly, though, you can make out that it's a rattlesnake or a scorpion or a lizard or things like that. And like the symbol kind of speaks to that. But what did it really mean? Was it a symbol for a clan, like a clan symbol, or a tribe or something like that? Once in a while you get people that very definitively want to tell you that they know what these mean and that it's proven. I don't subscribe to that. I kind of subscribe to what science and archaeology typically says. If you go to museums, places like that, I've never seen one that doesn't say anything like this, that we really don't know what was really going on in these people's heads. So just wanted to point that out for the person that wants to try to school us. Kind of in that same vein, another thing people like to try to school us on is when we say the culture has disappeared, they'll say, no, it hasn't. The people still exist. And I would agree with you. Like the Tohono O'odham tribes of modern times are thought to be the descendants of these people. So the DNA lived on, but the culture, what the beliefs were, what they were really doing, I think is what we're saying when the culture has really disappeared with time. Not that the DNA or the people didn't evolve into, you know, the modern tribes, but really that knowledge, I think, is not known. And I've seen lots of, even from the people from these tribes, the ones that I think have the more scientific point of view wouldn't disagree with me on that, I'm pretty sure. But once again, we'll wait for the person to come school us. Keep an eye out in the comments. So never have ever said on the channel that the descendants don't exist. Just the ideas and the culture is the differentiator, I think, from when I say things like that. That's what I mean anyway, and that's what I think the museums and archaeology is trying to say. But of course, what I'll say is, if you have evidence that satisfies the criteria of the scientific method to back up a claim or something, my mind can be changed and has been changed. So I always invite that. But just hearsay, stories, legends, that doesn't satisfy me, basically. And right off the bat, you could see, like, you know, what they were talking about. There's a symbol of a snake. What did that mean? Is it a warning? Just like the warning we saw coming in with a modern sign that, hey, be careful, there's rattlesnakes here. I'm sure they were like, duh, that was probably a food source and they saw that all the time. But clearly a snake, but was it a clan symbol? Is it a warning? That's the thing that we're saying. Like, I don't think we can really know. But look at how, the fascinating thing about this site, not the best lighting for this, but just look how covered these volcanic rocks are in the markings of these people. What do you guys think they were doing here? Was this kind of a waypoint? Maybe they had vendors. Maybe they had food vendors set up, is what I like to say sometimes. And the rattlesnake food vendor was back there where we saw the rattlesnake, and, you know, I don't know. But clearly there's a lot of activity here at this particular site. So some kind of site of importance. I mean, virtually every rock you see here in front of us is covered in these things. Maybe I can't think of another site really that comes to mind, even though I may have seen one and filmed one and it's just not coming to mind right now. But I just don't recall seeing any other sites with this kind of a concentration of petroglyphs. Petroglyphs being, by the way, etching in stone. And these people love to do this in these darker rocks that have like a desert veneer on them, like a chemical process that can darken the rocks, but you know, once you scrape that away, there's a lighter color underneath, and that's essentially what you're seeing here. But absolutely fascinating. And there's a couple other sites that we visited out here in this region where you really start to understand the richness of the history here for this sort of stuff. I mean, there's just so much to see, and I think I even may have seen some modern letters on that side that I will go back and look at, but you'll even find people from the 1800s, like that settlers and pioneers that came out from the east, the white folks, even made their marks in the 1800s out here, and I love it all. I absolutely love it all. On my other video, I think we walk around this campground, and I actually spent the night out here once. And every time I do, like, there's like almost nobody here. Even in, like, it's kind of warm right now for camping out here, not at night, but what I thought might be some of the best campsites are these. Like, if you want to, you know, spend the night on the ground where the ancients probably walked and congregated, some of these sites are like right there, right up against this collection of all of these markings. We've walked around this whole structure, and the best concentration is where we just passed, and I think there's a few as you wind around, but you can already see it kind of stops. Not as many boulders out here. So definitely recommend walking around. They have interpretive signs all around here, but because we got a lot of ground to cover today and a lot to do, let's go back to the main concentration. We'll get some close-ups of a few things and maybe try to pick out a few symbols, and then we'll all surmise what we think they meant. And like I said, if you say you know definitively what they mean, awesome, love it. Send us a link to an article, something like that is backed by evidence, and I would love to see that, actually. I would love nothing more to see something that explains this or unravels it, to be honest. So I would be very pleased if someone has resources like that that are legit, that explain it better. And I wonder too, are there universal meanings just as humans, where you could find similar things in other cultures and maybe draw parallels to, come up with something like those spiral, symbols and things like that. Which you see a lot of those on these rocks. I mean, I see lots of these little spirally things. Some of you have surmised, I think, that the spiral might represent, or some of these things might represent water or something like that, or passing through to the other side, kind of a spiritual meaning. So very likely maybe so. And maybe there is something to it. Maybe in other cultures you'll see that. And there are connections to that, some kind of universal meaning. I don't know. I just haven't found any information, definitely in the field of archaeology or something like that, that explains it. But to me, having it be a mystery and kind of unknown is part of the charm for me, because I think it's just, if it is true that you really can't know for sure what was really going on in the minds of these people, yet it's just so human and relatable in weird ways, coming up with our own interpretations and thoughts, like nobody's necessarily wrong in your belief. And that's part of the fun for me, is the mystery of it. I think I'm zoomed in on it. I can't really see in this bright light my viewfinder on my camera, but there's some initials, DEW, and it looks like that was etched in 1908. So not in the 1800s. And then way up there, I see another one, like SD and AAW. I want to say I see like 1927 or something on that. So some of those approaching 100 years old. There's one 1953, but you don't really see too many more like beyond those dates. 53 is pretty recent, but as time has gone by, it's highly illegal to mess with this stuff. So I don't do it, but I guess people got more educated as time went on and they cut that out, thankfully. And that might be one of the more hypocritical things I say, or that I'm fascinated with, are the etchings, especially going back to the 1800s and that. I love that stuff, but like if someone today did that in the year 2025, people would be outraged. I would be outraged, but then 300 years from now, it would be cool. So it's like, I always like to think about, like, when does it become interesting? Like how much time has to pass before graffiti becomes historic, So there's kind of an irony baked into that, but not at all suggesting go out and make your mark. Like, please don't. But you gotta wonder about that sometimes, because at some point, if you did do that, the modern people of today would hate you for it. But 300 years from now, someone would be out here filming in the future of YouTube, wondering who that person was 300 years ago that did that. So kind of an irony there. All right, one last look, because it's getting hot. I'm trying to stay out of the sun a lot these days, and preserve my skin. But, and the camera is starting to overheat too. But you can see right up close, you could see these things, and it's just so much. So what do I think about this? And this could be very uneducated to say, but it almost feels like this was maybe like a hub, maybe like a gathering place where we were making fun of, like, oh, the snake vendor was over there or whatever, but maybe a trade type of thing where people were set up doing trade, something like that. Just clearly an area where a lot of people congregated for whatever reason. And that would make sense to me, that it was maybe some kind of a area just for people congregated and maybe traded, something like that, or maybe part of a travel route through this otherwise very barren and inhospitable landscape. Anyway, Painted Rock Petroglyph site, folks. Just finished my drive-through for Campview. Heading back towards Gila Bend, but we have another stop to make for our adventure today, our exploration in that area, another historic location I want to go check out that I've never seen. And I got the directions plotted, so please excuse the casual nature of this. But yeah, such a neat site.
Then turn left.
All right, back on the pavement. Not that we went that far off the pavement when we went back there, but essentially what we're gonna do is backtrack the way we came back towards Gila Bend, but once we get to that area, should be hooking up with a more historic highway, a segment of an old historic highway that we'll discuss in a little bit more detail. once we get up there. So I'm not going to refilm everything on the way there. We'll conserve time, conserve my voice and my spit, and I will see you a little bit up the road as we head back
Continue straight onto Painted
towards
Rock Run
Phoenix.
Road.
I just used Google Maps to plot a route to something called Gillespie Dam, which I think is right next to Gillespie Bridge, both historic and part of this tour, and both part of like the old Highway 80 route. And there's the Stouts Hotel as seen from Slim in the 9/11 Memorial Park that we visited earlier on in the episode. In about less than a mile, we should be making a left turn onto, I guess officially, Old Highway 80. I didn't see any signs for it. There's the Space Age Lodge, also another kooky thing here about Gila Bend that I always enjoy. Can't really see all of the weird things in there, but kind of a cool roadside, still operational motel. Kind of got that classic vibe here in this town, as well as it should, because it's a classic area. So I've always been curious the best way to get on the old Highway 80. I've never really paid attention. It looks like there's a left turn right up here.
In 1,000 feet, turn left onto Old Highway 80, Old US Highway 80.
Alright, I guess it's where that truck is coming out here at the Gila Bend Lodge, or I don't know. Where would it be? Like, we're not quite there yet. I think it's right up here, maybe. Driving
Turn
like...
left onto Old Highway 80, Old US Highway 80.
I thought it was back there, so I've been in this middle lane a little longer than I should. We'll kind of do a dangerous thing there
Continue
to
on Old US Highway 80 for 22 miles.
get on over. So 22 miles. Wow, I didn't realize it was that far up the road. But I think we might be able to even get home this way eventually to get up to like Buckeye, Arizona, I think. So we might be able to take this for a while, but I think we're officially on the old highway now. Old historic highway. And I don't know much about it. Other than probably, I'm gonna guess, 1920s era highway, like early age of tourism, automobile age. I always like to I'm thinking kind of Route 66 era, like the early days of that, just here in southern Arizona. For travelers, like I said, going, I think, in between California and New Mexico. I think it was a 500-mile stretch, and now I'm going by memory from what I was reading on Wikipedia. I did print some information and saved it as a PDF to my phone. Not gonna be reading it here while I'm driving, of course, but when we get to like some historic destinations, I could probably do some reading, and then if I say something incorrect between now and then, I will correct myself. But so far, not really particularly interesting, other than the beautiful Arizona scenery, of course. Been keeping my eyes on my Google Maps, and the Gila River is like right out to our left. Haven't seen it. Don't know if there's water in it at this area, like kind of north of the Gila Bend area. But we should find out, because there's a historic bridge that I assume crosses the Gila River. I don't know what other rivers are out here, but haven't been recording most of the drive here. We haven't been going that long, but only about 3 miles left to the historic dam. I'm assuming the bridge is right next to the dam, but whatever one we get to first, we'll stop. I know there's some interpretive signs that I've seen online there, so we could probably just read those to get you your history lesson for the day when we get up there. But as far as I can remember, this is my first time doing the old Highway 80. I've never driven this way. I never had any real reason to. But until I started getting interested in the history of the area, but just never found time, I guess, on the Cactus Atlas to explore back here. And it looks like we're driving kind of straight at the river. I'm assuming we're near this is kind of where the Gila River turns north for a while, then I assume it kind of hooks back east. The bend, where Gila Bend gets its name. Because the river does this, like it's heading this way, then it goes down and then back again. If you look at maps. We're only a mile from the historic dam at this point. And I think the bridge we shouldn't miss, I don't think, because I think I actually do see the bridge. And it looks like maybe the dam's on the other side. So what I think I'm gonna do, based on my studies, I think there's signage on this side of the historic bridge, which you might be able to see at this point on the front-facing camera. But I'm really curious to know if we're gonna find any water. That's like one of my biggest curiosities. I've seen pictures of it with water for sure, but in the modern times in 2025, with as little rain as we get in this region,
arrive at your destination.
I guess we're gonna get parked on where I need to. So I'm guessing the dam is very close to the bridge, or what's left of the dam anyway. But right there is the historic bridge, and there's like a little shaded like pavilion up here, and there are actually visitors here today. So how do I get in here to park? There's quite a few visitors here today. I guess we have to kind of do a U-turn kind of thing here. Oh, there's the dam, and there is water in the river. How cool.
You have arrived.
Alrighty. So from here, we're just gonna get out on foot and explore. I brought the drone also. Like, I haven't brought it up for a flight in a while, so today might be the day. All right, see you on the bridge. Wow, this is cooler in person than pictures. So the dam, I think, is like kind of broken. I know there was like a catastrophic event, not in like that far in the past, maybe a couple decades ago or something. I think the river got really full and the dam broke or something like that, but kind of rely up here to see if there's any signage. If not, see that like hole in there? I'm wondering if that's where the dam broke. Thought there was a sign up here at some point explaining stuff, but I wonder if they've removed it or if I'm just dreaming. But I guess this is like a little observation point for folks. Very neat. So part of Old Highway 80, I presume. And then you could see it's very dry here. And I'm guessing there are probably times of the year after some really good rains where this is just full of water, but kind of like what I was suspecting. I wasn't thinking we were gonna see massive amounts of water out here on this historic highway, but we do have water over here. So I don't know if it's being diverted, I guess, maybe. It's modern vehicles crossing the bridge. Left my phone in the car where I pulled down a PDF or two, some Wikipedia level knowledge, but basically this is part of the old Highway 80 and it does span the Gila River. This was constructed between 1925 and 1927 to basically replace what was known as the concrete apron dam. I think it's that dam right there back there, which I think you could drive across before that, but they built this because the river would oftentimes flood and kind of flood over the dam. And I'll read some info about the dam here in a moment. But basically, yeah, this bridge is almost 100 years old. Probably just a couple years short. I'm gonna guess what, like 98 years since it opened. And I think Highway 80 was the main thing, I think, through like 1956 is a date I just read. But the actual bridge you're looking at, yeah, that's a classic bridge. And I wonder, oh, it's a dust devil. right below us. Look at that, crashing into the bridge. But that's really cool Arizona history for you right there. And yeah, the Gillespie Dam Bridge, as it's known, this route, it says, was really between San Diego and Georgia. So I read something somewhere that said California to Lordsburg, New Mexico. So I see some conflicting things about the length of Highway 80, but if you read the article about the bridge, it says the route went from San Diego to Georgia. So once again, this is the new Cactus Atlas for now, the more casual thing. So I didn't do extensive research, but either way, a classic route where if we could just go back to 1927 and stand in this or be in the same location and watch the cars of the era driving across. Maybe that was the era of cars that had horns that went auga, auga. I don't know. I'm kind of ignorant when it comes to that. That's my impression of 1920s era cars. But that might have been before that. You guys know what I'm talking about. But very rusty at this point, and we're gonna drive across it because I think I'm gonna try to get back home by continuing this way rather than driving all the way back down to Gila Bend. I think this will technically get you to Phoenix if you continue. And there's the old dam. So why don't I read the quick 2-second summary of that dam, and then then we can get better dates as to when I think it kind of flooded over and broke, which I think was in our modern times. There might even be like video footage of it, but we're not going to get too fancy today with the B-roll and all that kind of stuff. We'll save that for a different time. I wonder what this is for. Really no signage explaining it, and I didn't read anything about that. I don't know if that's part of the function of this bridge or this whole shaded area, or just like an observation deck with some piece of history here. I don't know. I'm sure some of you out there probably know, so feel free to supplement what I'm saying in the comments, since we're doing kind of a quick and dirty today. Really, the pertinent notes about the dam that we're looking at is it's a concrete gravity dam. And it was built in the 1920s also, presumably before this. I don't know if that actually was the thing you would once drive across or not before this was built. But the interesting thing about the dam is that in 1993 it failed and broke due to unusually heavy rains. But it was originally built basically for irrigation purposes, because this is very fertile land. You saw all the farms out here, so it played a function in that. And then in 1993, as you know, Arizona occasionally gets some crazy rainstorms, so probably just couldn't bear the load and bear the strain and broke. I don't know if that break in it is where it broke in 93. Probably easy to research that. And I want to say at some point I've seen video footage of that happening. But anyway, that's really cool. So like that's about 100 years old, maybe 100 years old. I didn't get an exact date. It just said 1920s. But you see you could see both in frame at the same time. I don't know. I presume there are some folks down there, I think, fishing, and I wonder if you can kind of walk out to the dam and get a better look. But you know, we'll save all of that for future episodes. It might even be worth just doing like a feature on the whole history of the dam and the bridge, and to come out some other time and do that. So here's what I'm gonna do next. I'm going to go get Cactus 1, the name of one of my two drones, Cactus 1 and Cactus 2. And we're gonna get Cactus 1 airborne. Haven't flown Cactus 1 in about, I don't know, probably 6 months or more. I fired it up at home and got all the firmware updates and software updates for my remote, so we should be up to date with all of that kind of stuff, and maybe just get some shots of the bridge from over here and some really good shots of the dam. This actually would be a great vantage point for flying. My only fear is if, other folks come to visit, I don't want to be in the middle of a conversation while I'm flying the drone. So but I also need to keep it within visual distance when flying, based on the laws, but also that's the right thing to do. I don't want to crash it. So let me go back to the truck and we'll get that airborne, get some shots of the bridge, maybe the dam, and then we'll drive across the bridge, and that'll probably be the end of the episode. Maybe we'll do that. I'll park on the other side and then we'll say some goodbyes, but I'm gonna do a flight, and I guess at this point we'll just play some music and enjoy the view. All right, I'm back from flying, and there are deer or something up there. I'm gonna try to zoom in with this camera. It's not really the best at that. You can see their white butts really well. Can you see them up there, like straddling the hillside? I'm highly doubtful that's bighorn sheep, but who knows? Like straddling a hillside like that, is that typical deer behavior? Like mule deer or what? You could see, hopefully you could see it. I'm zoomed in as far as I can go with this camera, but I see 3 of them about halfway up the hill, probably towards the center of the camera. Hopefully you see motion or movement at the very least. When I get home and see it on editing, hopefully it came out okay. That is really interesting. It's like there's just completely exposed hot sun and deer roaming the hillside. If they weren't moving, I wouldn't see them. It's really the movement in their white butts. Otherwise, they'd blend right in. It's ironic. I think the white butts are a defense mechanism, but it totally gives them away. Anyway, that was an awesome flight, albeit short for me. I like to fly a lot more than that. But I was getting dive bombed by swallows or something that looks swallow-like, a bunch of birds. As soon as I got that drone up there, I was here like Flight of the Valkyrie up there. But I haven't flown in so long, I started getting nervous, but we got some really good shots of the dam. I noticed a lot of people, I think the people that are parked here are actually fishing over there. I saw somebody out by the dam fishing. I'd really like to get out there and explore, but I'm pretty much out of time because I got to get home. And since we're trying to do the daily vlog thing, I got to edit this today to get this out tomorrow. So I got to edit a whole video. Kind of getting a taste, I think, of how guys like Adam the Woo or Jacob the Carpetbagger have to operate. And kind of a new respect for doing things that frequently. But figure let's come here to the base of the bridge. We'll get an awesome shot driving over it, of course. But what a day this has been. This has been actually fantastic fun for me. You know, maybe a quick update and word, because a lot of this, like I mentioned on a previous video, is my attempt at just kind of like overall recovery from, you know, cancer treatment that I had to go through. And I feel great today. I feel like almost like my old self. I haven't had any fatigue throughout this whole trip today. But yesterday I was at home and I didn't do anything other than sit on my butt and code. Worked on the CampView app for a while, and that wore me out. So go figure. It's like, I guess there's truth to being active and, you know, having exercise that gives you energy, ironically, it would seem. Anyway, back in the truck. All right, let's do this drive across this almost 100-year-old bridge, and there's the dam out there as we drive across. Hopefully the bridge holds for us. Hey, yo, get in your lane, dude. Guy's driving like right in the middle. Wow. I love old bridges like this. You know, where I grew up, like, you know, I've spent a lot of time in the Midwest and the East Coast, and you see a lot more of this style of bridge back there. But in Arizona, there's really not too many reasons to have bridges, or even these types of bridges. So it's kind of an unusual sight for me anyway out here. And apparently with some of the petroglyphs, by the way, that I read about, there's a petroglyph site, the Gillespie Dam Petroglyph site, somewhere right around here on this other side, I believe, which I'm going to save for another time. But just in case any of you are thinking, hey Glenn, you missed something cool, I probably did. I'm sure I missed a lot of cool things, but what are you gonna do? We got videos to edit and stuff to do, and I wonder if it's up on that hill right there, would be my guess, is where you would find that kind of thing. So I'm gonna come out here, we're gonna pull over, and we'll get a view of the bridge from this side on foot, and we'll end it for this episode. And I love finding dirt roads like this, something to research for the future. Maybe there's a cool route to go. But there's your bridge from the other side, just to prove that we actually drove across it, not that you couldn't tell. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me today and exploring the area and some of the history around Gila Bend. We'll be back tomorrow with another daily vlog on our quest to do daily vlogs for 2 weeks at least. But anyway, I think this is my favorite one so far. I enjoy doing stuff like this, so gonna try to sneak in a few more adventures like this here in the next couple weeks. So be sure to tune in. Subscribe to the Cactus Atlas if you haven't. There's lots of reasons to do so. Tell a friend about us, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again. Bye-bye.